This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that is one of my absolute favorite individuals in the fantasy sports industry. If you consume fantasy football content, there's no doubt that you've seen her work on FTN Network, the Fantasy Footballers, Fantasy Pros, NBC Sports Edge, the Mayo Media Network, Beth's TV, and several other places since she burst onto the scene a few years back. It's the one and only stepmom Lauren herself, Lauren Carpenter.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on, Kevin.
Absolute pleasure to have you on, my friend.
Oh, yay.
It was amazing meeting you back at the Expo last year. A lot of people think that your husband was like the star of the show, and he was amazing. But there's no doubt he's incredible. And he was definitely in the MVP running. But you were the star. Seriously, the smiles that you put on faces back there at the Expo was something I won't forget. So,
that is so kind. We had a ton of fun. That was my first Expo, and I don't think I'm ever going to miss it again. It was a ton of fun. It was wonderful meeting everyone, especially wonderful meeting you. We got a chance to sit down by the little bar area and have a nice chit chat for a long time. That was a ton of fun.
So much fun. And that Expo, we'll talk about it in a little bit here. But such a great event for the fantasy community. All these people coming to life that you know online and whatnot. But yeah, great event. Love every bit of it, and I can't wait for it to come in a couple weeks. So
I know it's right around the corner.
It is right around the corner. Yep. So let's start by rewinding back to when you first developed your love and passion for sports. Were you a big sports fan growing up as a kid?
So that's an interesting question. I played a lot of sports when I grew up. So I played soccer, basketball, volleyball, and softball. I also rode horses. And usually it was on multiple teams per sport as well. So I was constantly playing sports. And then only when I got to college, I went to the University of Missouri, and I have a Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Missouri. Did I really start getting into college football? And because we were in the Big 12 then, so we were actually good. Unlike now that we're in the SEC and we're like the dregs of the SEC from Mizzou, it's terrible. But I really developed my love for, tailgating, going to games, spending time with friends. And from there, I learned the rules of the game, how it goes, the different positions, what they do. And I kind of combine that with my own love of sports that I have played. And I'm a very competitive person. So I love rooting for sports as well. I grew up in St. Louis, so I love hockey and I love baseball. And the Rams kind of became a thing. It was the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner. And that was when we won the Super Bowl when I was a sophomore in high school. I know I'm dating myself there a little bit. But yeah, that's really where the love of watching sports came from. It's the competitive nature I have from playing sports, but football was a different animal for me. My brothers did not play football, so it's not like I was around it all the time. They were baseball and soccer. So yeah, that's college really introduced me to the love of the game of football.
That's awesome. So when did you first discover fantasy football?
Right. So I first discovered fantasy football because I'm a nosy friend. And I get really irritated when people are slow when we're playing a game. So going back to the competitive nature of things and tailgating, one of our things we love to do here in the state of Florida is enjoy the great outdoors when it's beautiful outside and not the surface of the sun. And I was introduced to a game called Bags, or some people call it Cornhole. And I was playing against my friend who was next to me, right? And he was taking forever to throw his bag. And I'm like, dude, let's go. What are you doing? So I peeked over his shoulder and he's setting his lineup. I'm like, what is this? What are you doing? So he explained to me what fantasy football was. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, we need to do this. And he's like, let's start a home league. So this was, oh my God, 8-9 years ago. And so I was like, let's do it. And of course, me being competitive, I wanted to be the best. And had my very first fantasy football league, and I ended up winning that league. So it was done from there. I was like, no, this is my thing now. This is what I'm gonna do.
Hooked. I love it.
Hooked.
So
it was.
That's crazy. So it seems like it was just yesterday when I saw you on broadcast with Adam Rank and on the Fantasy Whisperers. Tell us about how you first connected with Adam and how that all started.
Yeah. So going back to really wanting to have that competitive edge, that's my word of the day, is competitive. I suppose I always find one word and I use it over and over again. I do that on Sirius all the time too. It's very annoying. But I really wanted that edge. So I ended up reaching out to industry leaders on social media And they had a show called Fantasy and Friends where they were very heavily involved in the social media community, where they would answer questions live on air. It was really neat. And I got to have basically like a Twitter relationship with Adam Rank, who would always answer my questions when I would, throw them out there on the old shows years ago. And from there, we just kind of connected because he asked, just various questions, and just somehow it started rolling. And he said to me, he's like, well, you have a Bachelor of Journalism, you should maybe try to do this for a living, just try it out. And he was a really big support of mine. I know we have some questions later. He's going to come up again, don't worry, everyone. And I'd written on my profile that I was an aspiring writer, because when I grow up, I do want to be a writer. Like, I want to write a book, and I've got ideas, like, urban fantasy, sci-fi novel. That's like my ultimate dream job for when I grow up. So I've always wanted to do that. Either that or a veteran. I'm too old for that anymore, so I'll stick with the writing part of it.
I love it. So when did you first start creating fantasy content?
Yes, when the Fantasy Whisperers reached out to me, because I had on my profile that I was a writer, they're like, hey, we're looking for, content creators. Do you want to hop on? And this was during AAF, actually, was when we started kind of dipping our toes into the water. They were already established, Johnny and Travis. So they had brought me onto it, and I came on various podcasts with them talking about the AAF, and then that bled into the regular football season. And they kind of created the video and audio monster that you see and hear today. And that's really when I started getting into it. And I found out that there was some information missing that I was looking for. So I ended up just starting to do my own research. And from there, I was like, well, if I'm looking for it, I'm sure somebody else is looking for it. So I dabbled in writing an article. It was not very good. It was very snarky. And sent it to some of my friends. And they were like, hey, can I put this on my website? It was fakepigskin.com. And then that's what created the writing monster was Robert.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, you have contributed to so many influential brands in the space. It's incredible. How has that journey been, with all the different industry companies you've been working with and juggling all of that over the last few years?
It's crazy. It has been crazy. It's a ton of fun. So when you love what you do, you don't really feel like you're working. I know that's very cliche, but people think I'm insane when I tell them the different amount of things that I do in different networks that I work for, which can get a little confusing when different companies have different guidelines, but it all kind of does stem around the same thing. And as long as you love what you do and you are good at what you do, and by good, I don't mean always right, because we're educated guessing here, folks. That's what we do for a living. But just loving what you do and putting the research into it. If you have an opinion, make sure you back it up with facts. And yeah, it's been crazy, wonderful, awesome, and just meeting everybody in the industry, younger, older, men, female. I mean, it's been awesome. It's been crazy, but awesome.
That's great. Now it's exciting to hear about your new gig with Sirius XM, right? Of the all-in football show is now on Sirius XM. What's that experience been like for you, and what are you looking forward to most with that?
That is it. That is so fun. It's I struggle to wrap my head around the fact that we have a show, because we are goofy. We have a ton of fun, and it's full of knowledge too. It's not like we're just sitting here cracking jokes the entire time. We do a lot of laughing. We have a ton of fun. We play games. Especially making lists. Those are fun. Jake likes to always put me on the spot and then always do the opposite of whatever Chris Meaney wants to do, which is funny. That's how I got on All In Football, as I argued with Jake Ciely on the Podathon, I believe, from Fantasy Pros. And he's like, hey, you want to be on my podcast? And that was, I think, 3 years ago or something. And so here we are. And I have no idea where this is going to go. I'm just excited to be on this crazy journey that this has gone from doing a podcast, being on, your YouTube, and then now suddenly being on a national syndicated radio station, program, network. It's been surreal. It's been unreal. And we have so much fun. The good part of it is that because it's just audio, I don't have to put on my war paint or, do my plumage, so that when I laugh really hard that I'm crying, my mascara and eyeliner does not melt off my face and I look ridiculous, which happens almost weekly when Jake and I do our podcast together. In the off season, it's on Mondays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on the FTN YouTube channel. But that's a fun thing. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I don't really know, but I'm here for the journey.
That's great. Yeah, Jake is great. It's a fun show. I've enjoyed it in the past, so it's one of those things. I'm excited that you guys are on Sirius for sure. Now let's.
I
Let's
don't know
talk
how we got it. Like,
yeah,
I
it's
just,
amazing.
I even said that on last week's show. I'm like, how do we have a radio show? Like, what? It's so
So
fun.
fun. So exciting. Yeah. So let's talk about the fantasy football community. You obviously have been embraced quite a bit, quite well in the community. And it's hard not to talk about the Fantasy Football Expo when it comes to the community. What was your experience like going there last year?
I'll sum it up with how my champ husband described it. And he said, I've never been in a place with thousands of people and everybody is nice. That's what it is. It's thousands of people that you get to meet, whether or not they're consumers of fantasy football or they're analysts or they're fledgling podcasters or writers. And then you have the industry leaders all mingling and coexisting in one place. And it really was a microcosm of what I love about this industry is that everyone really supports each other. So it's not like, oh, you're coming for my job, or like, no, you can't live in the same space I do. It's more of along the lines of collaboration and saying, I love what you do. Come on my podcast sometime. And it's a meet and greet. It's a wonderful way to put a physical face to the name, to the virtual meeting of somebody instead of e-meeting somebody. Thank you, Megan Borgoon. You can actually meet them and just see what they're like without being on a limited time window on a show or just talking about fantasy football. You get to really get to know them as a human and what they're like.
Yeah. How about your involvement on the Women of Fantasy Football panel? How was that?
Oh, wow. What a crazy ride that was. So, Women of Fantasy Football is a movement started by my friend Josh Hudson, Joe Zolo, and Faith Enos. And it's incredible. I was on the original squad, if you will, several years ago, and just schedule constraints and time constraints, I wasn't able to continue being a host on the show. But they have taken the Women of Fantasy Football to a whole new level. If you haven't followed them on social media, you can do that. It's Women of Fantasy Football, or WOFF. And this has turned into something that is its own wonderful monster. And I think the expo and the fantasy world got a glimpse of what it was like to be in the mind of a woman in fantasy football when we had our panel. It's a very first ever Women of Fantasy Football panel. And it was a hit. It was standing room only, wall to wall people. In fact, people were lined up outside in the hallway trying to listen to us talk. It was mind blowing, but it was a lot of fun to be able to be a part of that. And from there, it stemmed a whole new fun draft that we're doing. So if anyone's not familiar with the Fantasy Football Expo, they have what's called the King's Classic, which is a really, really cool draft that they do with all the industry leaders. I was very fortunate. Thank you, Mike Clay, for getting your flight canceled to actually be a part of the King's Classic. I filled in for Mike Clay from ESPN during the snake draft, which was a ton of fun. It was terrifying. I sat between Bob Harris and Michael Fabiano, and I think Michael Fabiano cheated off me. I see you, Michael. I see you. I'm kidding. He didn't. But yeah, it was absolutely surreal. And this year we are doing the very first ever Queen's Classic on Saturday for the expo. It is it's a new thing. It's a new thing, and people are really embracing the idea, which is so heartening. And all of that positivity and that support is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. I can't wait to see how that Queen's Classic unfolds. It's going to be a fun
if you want to
event.
have some fun, come hang out with the ladies while we're drafting. I'm just saying, you boys are have a run for your money when it comes to people wanting to hang out over with the ladies. Oh my god, it's gonna be outrageous. Bob just I don't know what Bob is thinking, but we're gonna have a ton of fun. He may come to regret this decision, but it's in the books now, and he can't take it away from us.
He absolutely can't. No, that's super exciting. Can't wait for the expo in a couple weeks. Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out a question. You just give me an answer that comes to mind.
Okay, I got it.
What do you love most about fantasy football?
The people, the community.
Yeah, that's pretty special. What inspired the stepmom Lauren Twitter handle?
Yeah, so I don't have any biological children. I just have bonus children. They're my stepkids, and they are pretty much my life. And for a long time, that's what I was on social media. It was just, I'm stepmom Lauren. And that I never changed my Twitter handle for anything. So when I started reaching out to people like Adam Rank, to Marcus Grant, Liz Loza, they knew me as stepmom Lauren. So it just stuck, and I'm still stepmom Lauren.
I love it. It's great. How's your novel coming along? You're writing a novel, is that right?
Yeah, it's on pause right now. I actually wrote a book, and it was not very good. It was great until like halfway through, and then I tried to force it. and finish it, and it just didn't end up very good. So now I have to rewrite it. So that's on pause for maybe in the next couple of years. I got a house to build first.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
And the football season going on right now. So that's on pause, but stand by on that one because you never know.
Exciting. What's your most memorable home fantasy football league experience?
I'm going to go back to what I said before. It was winning my very first year ever playing fantasy football in our home league. That was the best.
That's
by
great.
far.
What to you makes a great live fantasy football draft?
Oh, that's a great one. Alcohol. But don't consume it yourself. That is one of my biggest pet peeves is if you're going to have a draft, do not drink. You can sabotage others. Just don't do it yourself until after the draft is over. But yeah, I say that flippantly. It's really getting everyone together because a lot of the times, most of these people don't see each other on a regular basis and coming together once a year for this draft. Some people come in from out of town, especially if you have, friends that have moved away. That's a really fun, special part about a draft.
For sure. What's the most absurd last place punishment that you've heard of in fantasy football?
This goes on in my brother's league. You get your name changed, and it is voted on by the rest of the league, and it's normally horrendously bad. So you cannot change that name until you win the league. So you're stuck with it until you get first place again, and you can rename yourself. That's
that's next level. Yeah,
level.
I have heard of changing the name the next season, but not until you win the championship. That's fun.
Yeah,
I love it. Name a person in the fantasy industry that you'd love to watch a game with, just to hear their insight and perspective on the game.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm gonna go with Matthew Berry. I would love to hang out with Matthew Berry and just watch a game and just hear what he has to say from every single play. When they even line up, I just want to see what he sees before the snap. I love Matthew Berry. He's a good man.
That's great. Name two people that you love to tailgate with before a game.
Two people I love to tailgate with. I'm gonna do the obvious one here, and I'm gonna say my husband. He is definitely one of them. He's my tailgating champ. The other one, I'm gonna throw out Adam Rank here. I'm gonna throw out Adam Rank. Like I can throw down and have some fun. We had a good time in Vegas during one of our leagues we drafted in. So I'm gonna say my husband and Adam Rank.
That's great. Now, what's been your most difficult challenge thus far in the fantasy industry?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I have found and I don't want to say it's difficult because I'm a woman. I don't necessarily think that's true. But when I see a need somewhere and you get denied and you go to the correct channels, you go to the correct people and you say, hey, I think that I can improve this for them. I'm just going to throw out a podcast. I think I can prove this. Here's how I can do it. And you just get completely shut down. Or you go to them and say, hey, I have an idea for this kind of content, and you'd get completely shut down. That really stinks because I am a contract based, freelancer, if you will. And I do that on video. I do that on writing. I do tend to not get the first priority as opposed to full-time people in that industry. Now, I'm not saying that's fair or unfair. It's just one of the things I found that gets okay, just because I'm not full-time doesn't mean that I can't give some good ideas. Yeah. Or when those good ideas are then taken and they run with my good ideas, but I am not involved in any of those ideas that I brought to them. That sucks too.
That's a good answer. Yeah. So name a few people that have had a massive impact on you during your journey within the industry.
So obviously I said Adam Rank already. He's a big one. Liz Loza is also another one. She is just an exceptional woman, just naturally. And not only that, in the fantasy football industry as well. She's an amazing, amazing person. I'm going to throw back to Johnny and Travis. They've been a huge, huge help for me, giving me that kind of confidence. We always have a lot of fun whenever we virtually hang out. I got to hang out with Travis actually at the expo, which was a ton of fun. They're a great podcast to listen to. That is the Fantasy Whisperers. I love them. They're good ones. And also the fantasy footballers, I think, have really had a huge impact on me as well.
Good answer. They've had an impact on a lot of people for sure.
That's true.
Who in the industry would you really want to meet in person that you haven't yet?
I was going to say Jake Ciely, but I've met him. I went to his wedding, so I can't use him anymore. That kind of stinks. So, oh gosh, let's see. I've met a lot of people in the industry. Scott Fish is a good one, but met him at the expo. Do you see where we're going with this? People, you should go to the
Yeah.
expo. If you follow these human beings, if you follow their work, if you like what they do, if you go to the expo, it's all access pass to pretty much everyone that you can hang out with. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for this
No,
one.
that's fine. I mean, the expo has
I
kind of
really
solved
don't.
that, hasn't it? Yeah. Now, as for actual real football, name one quarterback that you're going to leave most of your drafts with this year.
Yeah, this one's probably going to be a cop out, but I'm going to be targeting the top tier, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Jalen Hurts. I'm going to try to do that. But there is one sleeper that I'm really looking at that if I have the opportunity to take two quarterbacks, don't wait until the very end and then take like Kirk Cousins. That's not fun. We talk about this on All in Football and on our FTN fantasy show on Sirius XM because you're not you want to use those last draft spots, those draft rounds for the high upside guys. Jordan Love is really on my radar this year. I really like what Geno Smith was able to do with the Seahawks. He completely blew away my expectations. I really had an eye on him last year. And again, just out of the water, blew everything that I thought he was going to do out of the water. And I think Jordan Love is in a very similar situation mentally where he did have to learn behind the first ballot Hall of Famer and Aaron Rodgers. And the team is really behind him. And that gives him a lot of confidence. So I think Jordan Love is going to really surprise people. And if I have the opportunity to take two QBs, I'm taking Jordan Love without question.
Great. How about two running backs that you'll leave most of your drafts with? Or
Okay, first one is Jahmyr Gibbs. If you have listened to any of my work over the last couple months, you know that I have a solid respect for Jahmyr Gibbs. I guess it's like my by proxy fandom for the Lions because of my husband, but I just really like what the Lions have been able to do over the last few seasons. I love Dan Campbell. I'm sad about Jamal Williams. That breaks my heart. But Jahmyr Gibbs is one I think that is overlooked for the Bijan Robinson, him for Bijan. I like Jahmyr Gibbs just a little bit better, especially what I think he can do in that offense. I'm not that afraid of David Montgomery. Will he be involved? Yes, of course. But the second one that I want everyone to pay attention to is Tank Bigsby for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Etienne got a ton of touches, an exorbitantly skewed amount of touches, which a lot of people want to lean on. That is not going to happen again. His name is Doug Peterson. He is the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If anyone recollects anything that happened with the Eagles, you know that he is a running back by committee guy, and he does not want to force Travis Etienne to get hurt again or to just overuse him. So Tank Bigsby is going to be utilized. Third down guy, possibly red zone, 5-yard guy. I really like what he can bring to the table, and I think a lot of people are passing him up.
That's great. That's great advice. How about two wide receivers?
All right, I'm going to go Calvin Ridley. I know it's another cop-out answer, but maybe I'm just saying this because I want it to happen for him. Like I'm trying to put that really good juju out in the atmosphere for Calvin Ridley. Unfortunately, he's going pretty high in drafts. I had him listed up here. And now I can't remember where it went. Look, I thought I was being prepared, and now I'm not at all. Let's see. The other one I want to look at. These are hard because I really like Wan'Dale Robinson, but like the Giants seem to just constantly want to add slot receivers with Darren Waller also playing out of the slot. So that's really going to be a messed up one. Don't overlook Tim Patrick from the Denver Broncos either. I really think this is going to be a way better year for Russell Wilson. Especially after Sean Payton just got done ripping Nathaniel Hackett a new one publicly, which just came out this morning. That was a hot mess. But I think the Broncos are going to take a step forward this year. There's the obvious ones like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, but Tim Patrick was able to show that he had some skill, and he's going way late. He's actually going undrafted, if not in the 16th round. So he's pretty much free, and he's not a guy that only gets 1 or 2 receptions a month. He's looked at. Russell Wilson likes to find him.
Sounds good. How about one tight end?
I'm going to go with Chigoziem Okonkwo. I love saying that name too.
I was just going to say, you like to say that name, don't you?
I know. It's fun. Chigoziem Okonkwo. I think the addition of DeAndre Hopkins to the Titans was a little head scratching for me personally at first, but this makes me a lot happier for Treylon Burks, but it especially makes me very excited for Okonkwo. There's very limited volume. That's my one reservation. Why would you when you are running your offense through Derrick Henry? But I think just by association, they're going to be throwing it a little bit more, if not just to get it to DeAndre Hopkins, who is going to see most of the double coverage in that offense. They're going to have a really hard time trying to shut down the Titans offense this year just by adding that one player. And I think that Okonkwo can really make a splash in the red zone. And I think he's going to be one of those reliable pieces that Ryan Tannehill, if he stays healthy, will be able to look for. And he's, again, going pretty late in drafts as well.
Yeah, those are all great recommendations because you're, like you said, they're, these are players you can get in your drafts if you want to target them. So that's great.
Sure.
Now you again have you trailblazed your own path in the fantasy industry. So admirable.
On it.
Yeah, for sure. What advice do you have for aspiring fantasy sports analysts or people that are looking to get more involved in the industry?
I love that question. I have two answers to it. The first one is just do it. I know I don't want to be Nike here, but I'm going to be. Put yourself out there, write some articles, take some good constructive criticism, take that, learn, get better. Every one of us gets better every single day. Not any one of us is at the peak of our game. We always learn something new. We learn different ways that we can express our arguments. The second part of it is be nice on social media. Do not come at people on social media, especially when you are ladies. Do not put yourself in a position where you are sexualizing yourself. You are asking for trouble. That just blows my mind that a lot of women still do this in this industry. If you want to bring it on, that's fine. And if that's how you like to communicate, that's your brand, go for it. Just expect what you're going to expect from putting yourself out there like that. But don't attack people, ignore the trolls, just be a good person when you're on social media, because there's a lot of really good people out there that are just looking for advice. They just want, just help, or they just want to connect in a platonic way that just talks about football in the fantasy industry. So put yourself out there, always be willing to learn and get better, and also just be a kind person, especially on social media.
That's great. Great advice. Absolutely great advice. Now, this year, you will be exclusive with FTN Network. I love fantasy football resources. Tell me all about FTN Network, things that are going on over there and things you'll be doing over there.
Yeah, FTN has absolutely exploded over the last year, specifically in the last few months. I just feel like we keep adding so much amazing talent almost every single week. There's these new introductions to these people that are just amazing in the industry, like Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders. He is now with FTN. We have Robbie from Rum Boys Network, who was just brought on. FTN Bets and also FTN Data is mind-blowing, everybody. The amount of information that you can find at ftnfantasy.com it just honestly blows my mind. It's almost too much for me because I'm like, oh, so much input. Where do I go here? It's amazing. We recently redid our website, which is absolutely stunning. It was stunning before, and they did such a great new workup of it, and they added so much more information, and they're really throwing a ton of effort and resources into the research behind it, not just for players, but also for us as analysts to be able to rely on this. There's a lot going on over there, which is a lot of fun. And it's not just redraft or dynasty fantasy football. We have all the sports that are in there. We also have the betting side of it. We have prop bets. You can follow along with us when we make our prop bets to see how well we're doing, which I think is a really cool interactive experience. And if you want to sign up at FTN and do their premium packages, you can actually get 20% off if you use my promo code SML, just like Stepmom Lauren. And that helps me out, helps you guys out. You can get access some amazing premium content. But yeah, they're my go-to resource for a lot of really, really great in-depth information that when you don't know where to look for something and you're like, I wonder where I find that stat, I bet you can probably find it at FTN Fantasy.
It's exciting. So, share your content schedule coming up for the 2023 season. Where people going to be able to find you?
So luckily it's pretty simple this year because normally I rattle off like 4 or 5 networks, but this year it's just FTN, which is very exciting. And you can catch us on their YouTube channel. I am with Jake Ciely on Mondays right now. That may change to Tuesday. We just not quite sure yet. It's going to a little bit up in the air until the football season starts. We have some rotating schedule and things we're working on right now. But I'm either Monday or Tuesdays, 10:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. with Jake Ciely on our All In Football show. And then also every Saturday morning on Sirius XM, channel 87, every Saturday morning, 9 to 11 a.m. It is Jake Ciely, Chris Meaney, and myself for the FTN Fantasy Show, which is very exciting. And you can also catch me at the Expo.
Absolutely. The Expo is in Canton, Ohio, the middle of August, just a couple weeks away. So we're all excited for that for sure. Now, is there anything we haven't covered before we close things out here today?
Jalapeno poppers are very, very hot. So when you do order them from a restaurant, make sure you wait a solid 5-10 minutes. Otherwise, when you bite into it, liquid hot magma will burn your face.
Absolutely incredible advice right there
I
from
know. It's
stepmom Lauren.
earth-shattering, but I just dealt with that for a solid week. And it was not fun, so I wanted to share it with the masses.
Well, it's out there, so people have been advised. It's up to you now if you want to take on that risk.
I know. Just don't blame me. Just I warned you.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me, Lauren, on this
course.
episode. I cannot wait to see what you have in store in 2023.
Oh, me neither, because I don't even know. We'll figure it out.
Oh, you're the best.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.